But let's get started with the very first one. Reverend Laditon Thompson, who is a security consultant, joins us virtually. Reverend, thank you so much for coming on the program.
A pleasure is always mine.
You know, I've listened to you for a long time, and sometimes when these things are not happening, I remember some of the things you said, some of the warnings you gave, actually. But now it's coming home eventually. But I will start by asking you to give your interpretation of the multiple characterization of what is playing out. On one hand, according to the UN Genocide Convention, defining genocide as in terms of intent, not necessarily skill. The American government saying Christians are being killed. The government is not doing enough. The government is saying, yes, they are killed, but others are killed as well. We're not talking about the issue of sovereignty. There are so many issues. There are conspiracies around in between all of this. So let me just allow you give us your own interpretation of this multiple characterization, and we can zoom in into some of the nitty-gritty of the issues.
Thank you very much. My take is this. What makes us human? One of the things that makes us human beings and not beasts is the ability to think lucidly. If a nation has 200 and something million plus people, if for whatever reason as much as 200,000, 300,000 people are dying, 400,000 people are dying over a span of 15, 20 years of something that is not right, I would think that a right-thinking nation, its priority would be to diagnose properly and then stem the problem. There's something wrong with the way the Nigerian is thinking. And I believe that's what we need to correct, first of all. First of all, I want to say, whatever we're discussing right now, let's make it about the future, not the past. For 15 to 20 years, I spoke on this station that there's a global resurgence of religious extremism that's templated across the world. And it has a local expression in Nigeria. And I said to us that it's a hydra, if I remember very well. And I said to you that it has a religious cover. And I pointed out to us that its religious cover is exploitative because it had realized that in Nigeria's foundation, because of the divide and rule foundation that we have, religion was an issue. So it exploits that opportunity to create an enmity between classes. And I said for the first, like from the 1990s upwards, for the first 10, 15 years, it was consuming Christians. Not only consuming Christians, it was systematic. We're talking about the rape of young girls. We're talking about kidnappings. And we're talking about the fact that when we got involved, we found out that it's so clever that it was operating in a way it was difficult to detect. And I remember saying ahead that at a final stage, towards the end, it will begin to kill Muslims. And when I said that, I was as a special advisor to the CAN president then, they were surprised. And I said, no, we've studied the MO of this thing, and whether we like it or not, if you want to go theological, let's go hyperdimensional. If you're a Christian, for instance, you will know that in Revelation 12, the Bible talks about the dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, one of these heads, the mountains, is religion. What you're up against is a dragon, and it uses not only religion, but education, but you name it. I'll give you a good example. In the years, I remember we had a meeting, and a journalist in Lagos there picked up something we pointed out in a meeting, that a textbook contained classical conditioning of the minds of students and was an approved textbook in a Nigerian school. It had a character who used to kill people and offer them to convert to Islam or be executed. And the journalist went ahead and, printed it. And when he did, a sack letter was waiting for him. He was charged to court. The police, the judiciary, everything was lined up to take care of him. Now, this is an interesting thing. That manufacturing company printed a new version of the textbook, presented it in court, minus that story. forgetting there's a second-hand market because they removed all copies swiftly. So who does that? When we went to a second-hand market, and presented old copies of the book, they threw the case out, and then there was a national furor, so they quickly retreated, and he got his job back. Now, what I'm going to ask you is this. What amount of intelligence does it take for you to see that there's something moving and working together behind the scenes? So we shouldn't be in denial. Let me just sum it up like this. Nigeria is a country that has multiple problems, like maybe a patient has Ebola virus, has HIV, and then has a virulent case of cancer. Shall we now say that because there are other life-threatening diseases, shall we now deny the cancer? So I don't want to say anything more than this, because there are two sets of people who have to be careful. When a soldier joins the army, he doesn't sign up to live. He signs to die, to defend his nation. When a pastor, a Christian, a minister becomes a pastor, he doesn't sign to live, he signs to become a living sacrifice, which means the nation should trust on them, at least the pastors, to speak truth to people of religion. So let's get away from this silliness, because anybody with an iota, I know that it uses media as a force expander. It's very confusing. It's not very easy, but through the years, we have broken this thing down and showed it for what it is. So it is actually wicked, asinine, for anybody in Nigeria who knows Leah Sharibu, who was taken at age 13 or 14, has been raped brutally, has 2 children somewhere in captivity. They don't care about it, whether she's in captivity or not. I'm surprised that the people who are in Nigeria who remember Deborah Samuel in Sokoto, who was killed. The students who killed her on religious basis were never tried. I want to remember Christiana Oluwashesi in Gombe, 2007, a teacher who was slaughtered by students. They went after her nursing baby towards the gate. Now, I can go on for a whole day listing them. The young man who came from Britain to come and do his youth corps in Plateau State, they were shouting Allah Akbar when they slit his throat, and they had him call his parents to listen to his death throes. So what are we talking about here? Now, the challenge is this. This Hydra has a head in politics. It has a head in education, like I showed you. It has a head in media. It has a head in practically all things. Many nations have learned to deal with it, but Nigeria never got it right because of asymmetrical warfare, hybrid threats, and of course the use of media as a force expander. So the point now is this: because we refuse, or whether it's a lack of courage, whether it's cowardice, whether it's confusion for whatever it is, we have not really faced up to the truth. And that's where we are right now. So when a man like Donald Trump comes in and says, look, the bloodshed is copious. Now, I'm telling you why Nigeria has been silly. Over the years, there have been too many foreign observers who have come into the country who quietly have been watching the figures, collecting, collating. I remember this same confusion at the time we were looking for the FTO designation on the Boko Haram. The Boko Haram was so disguised. Some said, no, it's ethnic. Some said, no, it's this. Some said, no, it's that. I remember in 2012, there was a hearing on Nigeria in the US Congress. And you would not believe the asinine arguments that we heard there. Don't forget, in my desk, at that time, the American government, Secretary of State at that time, was funding the Boko Haram in Nigeria. So now, all of a sudden, there's a change of government in America. And there's somebody who's not going to cooperate with, look, on the global level, there's something called the pacification of terrorists with territories.
All right.
Now, that is what is going on.
All right.
But all of a sudden comes a president who says, no, we won't do that. So let's get out of denial and protect the future of our children. What should we do now is what we should be talking about. Not all this politicking, spreading money around, being silly with our future. Indeed. The same thing I spoke on just a minute. I spoke on this program some years ago when an Al-Qaeda member was appointed a federal minister in Nigeria. And I remember I said it publicly, because we are living sacrifices. Why is that happening in a nation? And why are we pretending?
Indeed, Reverend Thompson, we've listened to you over the years speak to these issues in what seems a clairvoyant manner, and it appears as if they're playing out right before us now. Speaking of which, let's understand how we got here in the first place. And I recall here Senator Ted Cruz's legislation before the U.S. Senate, which, by the way, has not gone through, but President Trump has exercised his executive powers to designate Nigeria a country of particular concern. The bill 82747, also known as the Nigeria Religious Freedom Accountability Act of 2025, seeks to compel the U.S. government to designate Nigeria CPC, country of particular concern. And we understand that there have been hearings conducted on this particular bill, and representation of Nigeria was denied at that level. Help us understand who are those that you consider may have presented this legislation or presented petitions before the U.S. Congress, because we understand that there are some Nigerians over the years who have appealed to the international community, to come to the rescue of Nigerians who were being killed. Does this have a Christian coloration, Reverend Thompson?
I think it has a coloration of what we call the defense of religious liberties. I'll give you a few more examples. Go and read the Nikki Tobey report. In the Nikki Tobey report, there was a recommendation that the Commissioner of Police was complicit when the churches were being burnt, when Christians were being targeted in Plateau State. The recommendation from Nikki Tobey was that he was to be dismissed with ignominy. Instead, he was rewarded and became the Inspector General of Police in Nigeria. So what am I trying to point out to you is that, look, let's not forget about America. Are we saying we don't value the life of our people? Are we saying that we're not aware that this thing had a religious cover? And I keep saying religious cover because it is a supremacist ideology. I went to Ahmadu Bello University, and there are multiples of Muslims all over Nigeria who are not murderers. But because this thing wears a religious disguise and nobody blows the cover of the disguise, instead, the government reinforces it. Let us look at the governorship of El-Rufai. If we begin to quote what he said, the things he did, and we begin to look through the years, we don't need the American government to come and tell us that we have devalued human worth, and you will never build a successful nation when you devalue human worth. So when it comes to the American government, there are processes that they have. But the question I want to ask you is this. If your daughter was picked up at age 12, and 29-year-old men were raping her continuously, and I've had to deal with many children like that. I've had to do trauma counsel for them. How do we talk to their parents? Are you sure these are the questions that we'll be asking? Let me tell you the truth. Bunker Sampson, go and find out who that is. Rose Northcott, go and find out who that is. For the Gajere's family, find out who those people are. They couldn't care less whether it was Donald Trump or Donald Trump. If somebody comes to finally tell Nigeria, you can't keep doing this, and I will tell you why it is pertinent. The Hydra, terrorism is a global affair. It's not local alone. So to protect their own interests, many countries of the world also, what the former administration was doing was to trade Nigeria off to the terrorists to keep their own territory safe. Now here comes the president who says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead. And you have heard this also. It's also killing Muslims, which we predicted it will do in its latter phases. So for me, what Nigeria should be doing right now is not a matter of what Trump said was that if the Nigerian government does not protect its citizens, then there will be a consequence. Now, the question is it true that the value of the life of a citizen in Nigeria is of no value? Is it true that there's a predatory class that has no future for the average citizen in the country? Now, if this is true, why don't we address it by seeking cooperation, by setting up an ombudsman? Because you see, what is happening is this, the media is involved in this. And you don't forget that Nigeria, there's money flying around. I've been in this for years. 30 pieces of silver. There's money flying around, and what happens is that instead of asking the right questions, instead of facing the matters at hand, money begins to change hand. Then you find that even religious leaders begin to speak from both sides of the mouth. Let us call a spade a spade. This is not working. Let us reformat this country. Let us look to the future of our children. Let us not wait for America. Look, whether it's the American president, whether it's the British prime minister, and all that is not the issue. Is blood spillage going on? Yes. Scorched earth policy? Yes. While I was dealing with Plateau State, go and ask the governor of Plateau State then, Jonah Jang, what his experience was. And at that time, we told them in Benue State, get ready, you are next. How come we say you are next, it gets to Benue? And after Benue, we said to them, Kwara, you are next. And after that, Southern Nigeria, get ready. Now, are we paying attention to these things, or are we still quibbling, allowing ourselves to be divided by people who have collected 30 pieces of silver, who will sell their children's future so that they can enjoy today? We can't afford that.
All right, Reverend.
So for me, the emphasis is not on the fact that for the Christian who's been slaughtered and who has been slaughtered through these years, and I should know, for them, whether it's Donald Trump, Donald Trump, or whoever it is, it's answered prayer. For Muslims who have conscience in this country, it's answered prayer. So we are not going to be blinded by political ambitions to the point where we will sell the future of our children.
All right, Reverend.
So my counsel is, yes.
Yes, just to comment, I'm sure Nasser will answer for himself in some of the things you've mentioned his name. I'm talking about El-Rufai, but that's not where I'm going to with this. I want to pick up the president's quotes. He said the characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national unity. But we know the facts that are available to us. Donald Trump and his government and his Minister of War, as it is called, gave a precondition, saying, we will do the job if you refuse to do the job. When that is said to the president, also our nation, what drastic measure do you think they are talking about to, first, keep them off our shores, second, rebuild confidence in our people that lives of citizens, especially Christians and Muslims affected by this, is valued?
Now, this is where we know whether we have leaders who care for the life of the citizen or leaders who just want to hang on to power at all costs. A leader who cares about the life of the citizen, like I said, would probably first of all set up an ombudsman of some sort to clarify the issues, to bring forth statistics, which we will. If they dare, we will. We've seen the oppression and the suppression through the years. And if that president knows that this is not right, and if that president knows that there's no infiltration in high places as admitted by presidents before him, if that president is a serious-minded person, the focus should be protecting the lives of our people. Now, what is America talking about here? I think the allusions America is making is this. Excuse me. Let me talk about Leah Sharibu, for instance. Everybody in the world knows where she is with the children that she's been raped and she's rearing. Where the locations of terrorist camps are, everybody has been telling us for years, and we've been saying it, that there's complicity in high places. There's government complicity in this thing that's been going on. And I don't know how anybody will continue to live in denial when you know it will end up devouring this nation. So for me, I keep saying this. If America says, listen, remember the underpants bomber, the son of one of the wealthiest Nigerians, who took a suicide bomb and was going to explode it in America. I told you this is a global problem. And it is not all countries that will wait for us to destroy Nigeria. If Nigeria goes, West Africa will go. If West Africa goes, Africa is gone. What do you think will happen if all the resources of West Africa or Nigeria falls into the hands of this Hydra, which is a real Hydra? Why is our president not talking about that? Why is he not talking about that? Why is he not looking at the statistics and then saying, look, this is what we are going to do? So please, Mr. Trump, there's no need for you to come here. This and this and this and this is what Nigeria is going to do. We believe in the future of our children more than you can. believe in the future of our children, and we have looked into what you have said. We're not going to be replying, with just hyperbole and just, talking politics with the lives of people. We're going to reply you factually and say you are right or you are wrong. And if you are right, we're going to say, okay, maybe this is the challenge. And I'm going to tell you what the real challenge is. The simple thing that is true is this. You are dealing with an intelligent hydra that